Towson, Baltimore, and double history of Joe Flacco and the offense unfolds in Cincinnati. I will be on the scene in Cincinnati. Luke Jones is going to be on the backfields all week for all things Ravens, and of course the Orioles in this pennant race as well. But the Terps have moved themselves into our conversation with an amazing win down in Texas. This guy is a longtime Fox Sports insider for college football, now working independently, as they say. We welcome Aaron Torres back on. It's been a little while. You can follow his journey at Aaron_Torres. That's AARON, like Hank_Torres, Torres, like Mike Torres, our former Orioles pitcher many, many moons ago. What's going on out there, man? Big college football week here. And, I know some matchups are Maryland and Towson, but other matchups are Maryland and Texas. And these big, weird, out-of-conference matchups and these games in displaced places really sort of dot the landscape, but no one with a bigger debut than Maryland down in Texas, honestly, over the weekend. The biggest upset of the week.
Yeah, it's funny because you mentioned at Aaron_Torres. If you go there on Twitter, I did what I believe should be the AP Top 25. It looks a lot different than what the actual poll will and does look like as we get set for week 2. I got Maryland as the number 5 team in the country right now, and I got a lot of backlash on Twitter when I said that. And I said, look, Wisconsin went from unranked to the top 10 after beating LSU last year in what was basically a home game at Lambeau Field. So to me, there weren't very many teams that went on the road in true road games against Power 5 schools from fellow Power 5 conferences. There were a handful, UNC and UNC hosting Cal and things like that. But most of these big games were on neutral sites. And so, look, Maryland went to a true road game at Texas. You can talk about, was Texas overrated? Should they have been ranked? It doesn't matter. They were ranked, and they were a highly, hyped team, and a team that, frankly, returned a lot of talent and a lot of starters. And I think, look, you can sit there and say what you want about the state of Texas football. Maryland went in, dominated, was the better team, and there was really no question about it. To me, they were the big winners of the weekend. There were obviously other programs that got signature wins, but I think you talk about a program-defining win for DJ Durkin and the Terps. Maryland is number 1 on that list as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, you call it a signature win, but I mean a program-defining win. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I mean, first off, you don't get a chance to play these games. And I did a little research on this. We had Tim Strachan on from the Terps Radio Network. That game was made during the Ralph Friedgen era, right?
Wow.
So, literally, the game was made during the Friedgen era. So, you wonder why Maryland takes a game like that. And Friedgen was always big on that, taking a Notre Dame kickoff game up at the Meadowlands many moons ago. And, Friedgen had no problem doing that. And I think it's the only way you can establish your program is to play those kinds of games before the NFL even gets going, and you take that kind of a game on. You get a little payday. You go down there with 89,000 burnt orange crazies, and more than anything, you get picked off on the first pass of the game, and it's 7-0 the other way. That's not how you want your season to begin. If you're Durkin and you got a young program and 89,000 people leaning on you, there were so many things to like about it, including Texas getting back in the game, not once but twice in the third quarter. Backup quarterback comes in. They run the ball a little bit. I mean, there was a lot of moxie going on there. I don't know if they're the number 5 team in the country, but they need to be in the conversation of being in the top 25, right? I mean, when you had that kind of win.
My ranking is just based on what we've seen on the field. And I don't care that Washington was ranked, in the top 5 or whatever by some people coming into the season. They didn't look very good at Rutgers. And I don't, Penn State and Clemson and Auburn, they're going to have their chances to impress people. But to me, you can only rank based on what you've seen on the field. And Maryland, as I said, there weren't 5 teams that had more signature impressive wins. And it's funny that you mentioned, kind of it being a program-defining win. I know last year the big excitement was that Durkin got the team back to a bowl game, and, there was a lot of enthusiasm around that. But it's funny because if you talk to players, a lot of times these kids that go to the kind of quote-unquote group of 5 schools, the Conference USA schools, the, Mountain West schools, their most memorable games aren't a random bowl game in front of 5,000 fans that nobody cares about. It's going to Nebraska and playing the Cornhuskers tough. It's going to Alabama and maybe taking a loss but playing in front of those 100,000 people. This game did more for Maryland's program than I think anything that they could have done, obviously short of beating a Big Ten rival like in Ohio State and Michigan, a Penn State, whatever. But, going to bowl games is nice, but let's be honest. Everybody with a pulse goes to a bowl game at this point. So for Maryland to go on the road, as you said, Nestor, 89,000 burnt orange crazies, this is just so important. You can't put a price tag on this because now DJ Durkin can go to those top players in Maryland and D.C. and Virginia and say, you don't have to go to Ohio State or Penn State to compete with these national teams. You can come right here and do it at the state school or the local school. I guarantee he was sending a lot of texts and a lot of phone calls from that post-game locker room, just letting kids know that this is the moment that Maryland football has arrived. As you said, Nestor, is it sustainable? Are they going to go undefeated and into the playoff? Of course not. But just such an important win on such a big stage. Everybody was watching. Just great weekend to be a Terp.
Fascinating weekend to kick things off where, Ohio State has a Big Ten game with Indiana. Penn State, levels the boom on Akron. Clemson beating up on the Kent States. But, Maryland taking a road game at Texas. And again, that wasn't DJ Durkin's choice. He was recruited into that. And Harbaugh playing this game against Florida to kick off the season. And, finding a way to sort of upstage everyone Big Ten-wise by grabbing a victory. And I know Harbaugh always sells around here from his captain comeback days as the quarterback of the Ravens and obviously his brother. But it is quite a Bermuda Triangle with the Floridas, the Michigans, the Durkins, the Harbaughs, right? All of that going on. But Harbaugh was also the big winner this weekend, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I've written this, a bunch of times over the last month or so, but this narrative that Harbaugh has something to prove this year, it's like, does anyone have half a brain anymore, Nestor? Does anyone pay attention to anything but the most surface level stuff? I mean, yeah, they finished third in the division. Oh my God. Well, yeah, there was 2 top 5 teams ahead of them. And oh, by the way, they beat one of those teams, Penn State. And they lost by, literally a yard. They were a yard away from beating Ohio State at the Horseshoe last year. Then people say, well, he lost his bowl game to Florida. They lost 3 out of their last 4 games, or Florida State, excuse me. You do realize that they were without Jabril Peppers, a Heisman finalist. Jake Butt, their best offensive weapon, gets hurt partway through the game, is out for the entire game. And they had the lead with 2 minutes to go in that game. It is so idiotic. And I think Saturday just once again proves there are not 5 guys in America, and you can include the guys with national championships, the Jimbo Fishers, the Dabo Swinneys, the Urban Meyers, that I would want more on my sideline than Jim Harbaugh. He is brilliant. He has an incredible way to kind of get his teams focused and fired up and play with a chip on their shoulder. Let's never forget, everyone focused on the Florida suspension. Michigan had 2 starters returning on defense, and I believe something like 6. I think they had 5 starters returning overall, which according to Phil Steele, who is a college football encyclopedia, that was like the fewest returning starters for any program, any Power 5 program, and we're talking 20, 25 years. So I don't care that Florida, had guys suspended. Michigan was basically breaking in an entirely new team. And oh, by the way, they completely dominate. You take out those 2 pick sixes, they win by 30 points. They missed a couple field goals, could have won by 40. It was just such an important win for Harbaugh. And now, he gets to gloat again and say, oh yeah, you know what? Maybe I do know what I'm doing after all.
Florida State takes Alabama to start the season, and, that was the kickoff of all kickoffs. And certainly Alabama just, picks up where they leave off, right? I mean, I don't think anybody should be shocked, and especially pitching the shutout in the second half as they did. Florida State, good team, nice challenge to start the season, but, they start the season with a donut.
Well, they started the season, Florida State, this is, in the most crippling fashion possible. And I'll tell you what, Nestor, I love these early season games. Florida State, Alabama. This weekend we got Auburn, Clemson, Ohio State, Oklahoma. But there's this narrative that there's no downside to playing these games. Well, there is a downside. The downside is that for whoever was the loser of that game, you basically have to run both teams, by the way, good enough to win the national championship. Let's put that on the table right now.
And they might meet again in the national championship. That might be the way it goes down, right?
Well, in theory, yeah, but, now Florida State has to go undefeated. But the big story is, Nestor, that Sunday afternoon it was confirmed that DeAndre Francois, their star quarterback, is out for the season. And this is the risk you take with playing such a high-leverage game in week one with no preseason. And I love these games. I hope they continue to play these games. But let's not say that there is no downside to playing them. There is, and for Florida State, man, I'll tell you, I really came away impressed by that defense, by the offensive line. They were able to, I thought, handle the Alabama pass rush for most of the game. But now without Francois, you're looking at a team that in a really good ACC with Clemson and Miami and Louisville, they're going to struggle and they'll be great on defense. But I think their season is over before it really began. But, you give them credit for playing Alabama. But I'll tell you what, man, if I was a coach and my AD came to me and said, we can open up against Alabama week one, I would say no. And as you said, Nestor, earlier, these games are scheduled years in advance. But I just don't think there's a downside to starting the year 0-1, which is basically what you're doing if you're playing Alabama, if you're playing Nick Saban, with an extended period of time for him to game plan for you. I feel bad for Florida State. I credit them for taking this game, but let's never again say that there is no downside to playing a big opponent in week one.
He is Aaron Torres. You can follow his journey out on Twitter at Aaron_Torres, now working independently and writing all sorts of stuff. You can follow everything he does out on Twitter, including, man, what's up with the Steeler avatar thing here, dude? Like, what's that all about?
Business is booming, Nestor. No, before I left Fox, I had an interview opportunity with Antonio Brown. I had my old picture with Matt Leinart, Heisman, but one, I got fired from Fox. Well, technically laid off. They closed down my division. But two, it was just time for a fresh look. And me and Antonio Brown, we hit the town. We had a great time.
Oh man,
well, really
I hate hearing that.
No,
Did he Facebook Live you or anything, against the will of Tomlin, or no? He didn't do that, right?
I don't think that was part of the deal. I don't think when Facebook kind of hashed out the details with him, they said, we're going to pay you these tens of, hundreds of thousands of dollars, but you got to include Torres in the mix. I don't think that was part of the deal. So, no, it was a fun interview op, but you know what? Screw the Steelers, go Ravens.
Thank you. That's right. I need to hear that. You are on the air in Baltimore here. And by the way, talk about beginning the year with a bye. They start the year with Cleveland. We got to go Cincinnati this weekend. Aaron, for this week, and, I will be jetting around, as I said, to Cincinnati this week, and we got baseball happening here, but a lot of great Saturday afternoon and into the evening football to be paying attention to for anybody sort of waiting on the Ravens or the NFL to begin on Sunday. Clemson-Auburn, great game. Oklahoma, Ohio State, another great game. Stanford, USC is going to get it going later in the evening as well. A bunch of ranked teams here, and much like what we had last week, where these are really good football matchups. I don't know who's going to win an Auburn-Clemson matchup, but I'm going to enjoy watching it on Saturday night.
Yeah, no. And this is what's great. And look, I know I just railed against the fear of playing these early season games, but they are a lot of fun to watch. Like, I'm not going to lie. I think all three are really interesting that you just mentioned. But I would, the Auburn-Clemson one is so interesting to me. Auburn's offense looked awesome in week one, and their defense looked awesome, but they got to go on the road. And Clemson, of course, now playing, second career start for this quarterback that, was behind Deshaun Watson for 3 years. So for me, that's a fascinating game that I think could turn into a defensive struggle. Auburn on the road, Clemson with basically a brand new quarterback. I am fascinated to see. By the way, Clemson right now, if they can get through this game, even if they don't technically, but they have to feel like they're in pretty good shape with the injury to Francois in the ACC. But if they can get through this game, it gives them a little bit of a margin for error going forward. As far as Oklahoma, Ohio State, it'll be fascinating again. I know you watched that game Thursday night, Nestor. I am not sold that this Ohio State offense is vastly improved. I'm not sold that Kevin Wilson is the soothsayer needed to get J.T. Barrett back to his kind of Heisman form from 2014. I think this offense is still very much a work in progress, but they get to go home. They get an Oklahoma team that they absolutely dominated. I think this is obviously, look, neither team is eliminated from the playoff by losing, but this is such an important game. Ohio State, we know how many wars they're going to have in the Big Ten this year. And Oklahoma, oh, by the way, second game for Lincoln Riley, who, oh, by the way, turns 34 years old this week, Nestor. I don't know, what you were doing at 34 years old. I am not quite there yet, but I'm telling you this, I'm not leading one of the most prominent programs in all of college football. I'm not sold that it was the right decision to go to a guy this young in a program this big. We are going to find out so much about those two teams, as well as Auburn, Clemson, Stanford, USC. So, it's like a playoff every week. This is why college football is the best. It's a playoff every damn week. It's fun. It's a blast. As exciting as week one was, I cannot wait for these matchups in week two.
Aaron Torres is out in Los Angeles, California, where he worked for Fox Sports for a long time and watched football. Now, you got NFL out there every week. You're playing in soccer stadiums, football stadiums, but there's nothing that, Stanford USC on a Saturday evening in Los Angeles, that stops traffic out there on the 101, right?
You know who you should tell about football in Los Angeles is the people in Los Angeles. Nestor, I'll be honest with you. I have a belief. I think the Chargers are going to be one of the great duds in the history of sports here in Los Angeles. The Rams, people already flipped on the Rams. I mean, I live in L.A. You could not give away Rams tickets at the end of last year. One, because they were bad, they were boring, and going to the Coliseum, as you know, where USC plays, is a major, major project. And I don't know what the Chargers bring to the table because of the fact that everyone in San Diego hates them and how they left. So it's fascinating. As somebody, you mentioned the FoxSports.com. I've been hosting Fox Sports Radio out here in LA, and we talk a lot of Rams and Chargers. I'll tell you this: I saw a crazy stat. The Raiders game in the final week of the preseason outrated the Chargers and Rams combined in LA. Did you hear that, Nestor?
That's
the
crazy.
Raiders combined, they outrated the Rams and Chargers combined.
And that's probably not going to change, even if the Chargers start the year 6-0, which they're not going to do. I agree with you. I think the Chargers are a team that's going to wind up in Mexico City or wind up in London or wind up, where I don't know that there are any places left to leverage. Toronto might want a team, but Buffalo would never let that happen. I don't know where they're going to go, but This really was a crazy cash grab to leave a city that really wanted the team. And you can make that case about St. Louis or even Baltimore. We lost the Colts. Clearly Houston when they lost the Oilers. But the Chargers thing just really, really unseemly to me. And I do agree with you. And I think there's going to be a karma that takes over there playing football in a 30,000-seat stadium.
Yeah, and here's the problem. They haven't even been able to sell out the 30,000-seat stadium.
Because people don't care enough. They want to spend $200 to watch a football game they don't care about.
Well, that's
it's not free.
Nobody in LA cares about the Chargers. And people say, look, I have friends in San Diego that they don't cover the sport. They're just fans. And I literally had a friend who, when the Chargers left town, he's San Diego born and bred, he wrote a personalized letter to every single team in the NFL and just said, I am in the market for a new NFL team. How do I,
how do I apply?
Give me the spiel. And Nestor, I'll tell you this. The Ravens were one of the few teams that actually replied. They sent him gear. I never got the final verdict on who he went with. I think it was just based on who sent him the coolest stuff. But the Ravens, I think, were in the final few, but it speaks to the point that, look, when The Raiders left LA, and I'm not a historian here, but it's clear that they still have a ton of fans that were willing to go to Oakland. When the Raiders leave Oakland for Vegas, I think it's going to be prickly for a few years, but then, Raiders fans in Oakland are going to say, you know what, I go to Vegas twice a year anyways, let me just go out on a game weekend instead of a random weekend in September, October. The Chargers, I just don't see it happening. And you're right, Nestor. That city, for all the flack that San Diego gets is, it's a beach town. Nobody cares about anything. All they do is sit on the beach and play their guitars all day and do what else what. They cared about the Chargers and they love the Chargers. And so it sucks. And you're right. It's going to be a disaster. And I'll be curious to see kind of where this organization is 4 or 5 years from now and what their options really are, because I'll tell you what, being a tenant in the Rams Stadium, I don't think is going to be all that appealing for ownership in the long term.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. Aaron Torres joining us here. You can follow his journey at Aaron_Torres, formerly of Fox Sports, now working independently in a lot of different projects out there and watching college football and tweeting about it. Aaron, always a pleasure to check in with you. Always horrible when you have a picture with a Steeler on the front of your Twitter, though. I must admit that.
All right, well, I'll tell you what. You tell Joe Flacco next time he's in L.A., or you tell who's the big star. Who's the big star, Nestor? I'm trying to think off the top of my head.
Well, Brandon Williams would take a picture with you. He's a wonderful fellow, as is C.J. Mosley and some of the other players. But you write your letter to apply for NFL team. Your team's like the Giants, or so you're a Connecticut guy, aren't you?
I am a Connecticut guy. You know what's really funny? Real quick, and I'll let you go. I don't like the Patriots. I don't like Belichick.
Okay,
but I'll tell you this. Yeah, but I'll tell you this. I'm reading that Belichick Brady book right now.
Okay.
It's making me like Belichick a little bit more. I hate to admit it, but the guy is brilliant. But no, I was almost a NFL free agent in my own right, just because I grew up in New England, but never really cared for Belichick. There were some other things that happened with the Patriots. I was a big Aaron Hernandez fan. Unfortunately, I played sports against his brother in high school, but obviously that was a sad situation. So yeah, I'm just a sports free agent. You're learning way too much about me right now, Nestor. You're like my.
It's fine, but you're a free agent. It's fine, man. I play Dr. Melfi. I do that on the radio. That's what I did for 25 years around here. I took phone calls and took therapy from people. So I'm happy to be your therapist. And believe me, if we lose to the Bengals this week, I'll be a therapist all next week as well. Especially with the Browns coming in here. Aaron, always good, man. We'll check in again, and it does feel good to have Maryland be so relevant. It's fun to talk Maryland this week,
Top 5 team, baby, I'm telling you.
From your lips to the bowl of rankers' ears, we'll see if they can get to Ohio State undefeated a month from now. Aaron Torres, Aaron_Torres, you can go find him out on the interweb. You can find me anywhere the internet is served as well. The Buy a Toyota Audio Vault is there 24 hours a day for you from anywhere in the world, including Los Angeles. You tune in, listen when you want. The TuneIn Radio app's there for you. Download, podcast. That's what all the kids are doing these days. And there's no static at all, so you can listen anytime you want in the buyatoyota.com audio vault. We are going to London later on in the month with the Ravens. If you're going to be over there on Saturday, come join us and party with us. Got an afternoon of fun, frolic, fish and chips and pints and soccer and all that good stuff from 11 until 2:52. We're going to march 2 blocks to the Emirates Air cable car ride. We're going to take the cable car to a purple march across the River Thames to the O2 Arena, where we shall drink and eat and be merry and jolly as they are in England. We're taking about 80 people over. It's going to be a big party. We want you to be a part of it. Find the information at WNST.net. I am a very available individual. You can email me, nasty@WNST.net. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. And, of course, our morning newspaper ships to your email inbox at 7 a.m. each and every morning. That's all powered up by our friends at Planet Fitness at planetfitness.com, where they're getting you in the best shape of your life for $10 a month. It's the best deal going. Last but never least, one of the other best deals going is our WNST Tech Service. That's free of charge and brings you breaking news as it happens. And, of course, the Ravens making a bunch of deals over the weekend. The Orioles playing with the 40-man roster. Any moves, any maneuverings, you'll get it first, including the scratches on Sunday. WNST Tech Service, all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Dennis Kolatzis will be here on Thursday driving you home from 3 until 5. It is the SSV on WNST. I'm Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.